Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for The Walking Dead countdown to the start of Season 6. And I'm going to be doing the video that I've been saying that I would be doing within the next couple of days, which is going to be my predictions video for Carl and Enid. Trying to predict exactly what their relationship will be like, if there will be one. Some of the factors from the comics and from the television show that may perhaps provide some foreshadowing, things like that and just, give you my overall impressions. So just in case you are not caught up with Season 5 of The Walking Dead or the comics, there will be some spoilers in this video, so if you do not want to be spoiled, do not watch the video because you will be spoiled. Okay, so what all do we know about Enid? I think that's the first thing that we want to assess. And we know that Enid is around, probably around Carl's age, anywhere between 13 to 15 years old. She came to Alexandria about 8 months before Rick's group arrived. So, she pretty much had to live out there similar to how Rick's group had to. She was probably in danger every now and then, worrying about walkers, bandits, things like that. And it was revealed that it took her 3 weeks to even open up to anybody while she was in Alexandria. So maybe she has some trust issues, things that she, isn't comfortable explaining to people, as well as, just there are people out there that have trouble explaining things to people or talking with people. Sometimes we more want to keep things in. So it seems like Enid is more of that kind of person, but with the right kind of person, she can slowly start to open up. Now, when we look at Enid's character, we're still learning a little bit about her. We know that she's probably dating Ron. She does reference him quite a bit. Like when in the episode Try, whenever her and Carl go outside the walls, she says, well, I don't tell Ron these things, or I don't invite Ron out here. I don't tell him about this because he wouldn't understand. And that's something that she feels, that she can't explain to him, but that they do have some kind of a connection. Now, we do know that with Enid, there is going to be a scene coming up, according to the rumors that have been going around, that she will be shooting a scene that happened to her before she came to Alexandria. And 2 individuals, a man and a woman, will be with her. So that's almost looking like it's her family, her parents. And we might see exactly what happened to them. And I think that that's going to be a very interesting scene to play out. Because when it comes to Enid, we've really seen the kind of person that Carl is, and I kind of talked about that in my last video. But Enid, in a way, she talks about how, with Carl, how, they're supposed to be out here, she doesn't want to forget, and running makes her feel better. She says all of these things to Carl. Now, what I think really is going on with Enid is that, she is a survivor. She really is. She is somebody that knows how to do that, and I believe that her parents taught her how to do that. So basically, she is a survivor, and she realizes that what's happening outside is really more of the realistic kind of world that it is. That you can shelter yourself for safety, but that you can't really forget the very dangerous world that there is out there. And I think for Enid, she doesn't want to forget that, but I think there's something else that goes on there. And, she does still carry her mother's knife with her that she was using to, stab the log in the woods. She was doing that when she was talking to Carl. And I think that really what's going on with her is that she lost her parents. I really think that this is something that we do know. How did it happen? That's what we need to figure out. Did she lose them to walkers? Did she lose them to people? Or did something completely separate happen to her parents and then later happen to Enid? So maybe, her parents were killed by walkers, but she's had a run-in with, the bandits, maybe the wolves along the way, and has learned some things. So we really don't know exactly what happened, but I think that if we get a little bit of analysis into that, we'll be able to really understand what she is going through. And you really do wonder, did something happen to her or didn't it? Now, I feel like, when she says things like, running makes me feel better, I think that she, while she's out there, I think it reminds her of her parents. I think in many ways, Enid's not over that. I think that, nobody really gets over things like that. But I think that, to her, staying inside the walls all the time are like, a prison in a sense. I think that it forces her to, sit and reflect on what happened to her, and losing her parents being a very sad and devastating thing. But then you have to sit inside the walls and go about mediocre everyday life, and that's something that weighs very heavily on her, I think. But I think that being outside and running around and being like a free spirit in a sense out there running with the walkers, I think that it does two things for her. One, I think that it prevents her from being, weak, because I think she's really afraid of being weak, of not being able to survive. So I think that she does that. But I also think that it prevents her from thinking about bad thoughts, about what's happened to her, maybe losing her parents. Because when you're out there in the open and you have the risk of walkers, you have the risk of bandits, your mind, in a way, for the most part, is focused on surviving. Now, that doesn't always mean that, but maybe for Enid, she's the kind of person that can take that energy and use it to survive rather than focusing on all the bad things that have happened to her. And I think that that's something that is prevalent for her. I mean, I know that there's other people that have taken that kind of a situation and have become reckless, like when Tyrese lost Karen, and when Sasha lost Bob and Tyrese. You've seen that sometimes you use those unfortunate emotions as a way to kind of like flirt with death. But I think that Enid takes that and uses it to make her feel a little better, plus keeping her strong to survive. So I think it's a distraction as well. And I think that we're going to learn a little bit more about Enid as the season goes on. But, what kind of a future do Carl and Enid have together? Well, I believe that Carl and Enid definitely have some kind of a connection. I mean, we can't deny that they both have an understanding of the way the world is. Ron and many of the people in Alexandria really don't understand. That there are terrible people out there, that the walkers are extremely dangerous in more ways than you can ever imagine. And they don't know how to survive. They don't understand the kind of feelings you have outside of there. It's no different than the way we are in real life. It's like trying to ask a doctor how they feel when they go into surgery. I mean, unless you're really in there, you really can't understand. So I think that, they have that similar understanding, which makes them closer. And I think the other thing that really sticks with them is that both of them have lost their mothers. And I think that that is a very big factor for them. There are lots of things that bring people together, things that we have in common that we can understand. And for them, I think that they both connect very strongly with their mothers. I think they really loved them, cared about them. Lori was a provider for Carl. You can't deny that. I mean, taking out of the situation the Rick and Shane thing, you may say, oh, well, Lori leaving, Carl with other people was a bad thing, but nonetheless, I just don't think that Lori was a bad mother. I think she was a very good mother, and Carl loved her. And I think that that is something that Enid probably had as well, a good mother-daughter rapport, a good relationship. She loved her mother, and I think that that is something that they both have in common. Now, as you saw in, the episode Try, we see a little bit of a connection kind of forming between them, but at the same time, not something happening. Obviously, we're going to need a little bit more, time to see what they really feel about each other. Because I think that's the big thing right now, is that both of them are feeling very, I think they're both feeling feelings for each other, but at the same time, they're trying to suppress them for several reasons. But I think that they're for different reasons, though. Enid, when she says that she's afraid of Carl, I think that what it really means is that she's afraid of getting close to somebody. That I feel like with someone like Ron, she doesn't really have to worry about losing him because she feels that the walls are safe. And Ron's not going to go out there. But with Carl, sharing those similar, experiences with Enid and maybe wanting to go out there with her, I think that she's very afraid of that day coming where Carl might die. that they might go out and do something, like a little picnic date, God only knows, and they would get bitten. I think that's one factor. I think that she's just afraid of losing him because of those past connections. But I also wonder if she's afraid that love is going to make her weak. And we can't deny that, that sometimes when we do have love for one another, it can, in a way, be a disadvantage, especially if you're placed in a very difficult situation. It's easier for somebody who maybe doesn't have connections to, not have to depend on somebody, not worrying about whether they're going to provide for somebody else. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but when you do love somebody, sometimes you will make very rash decisions in order to keep them safe. And whether that includes, like with Shane, when he killed Otis, planning on killing Rick, love does crazy things to you. We cannot deny that. And I wonder if, Enid is a little bit afraid that falling in love with Carl would make her let her guard down, would make her forget about how to survive, maybe make her change her ways, or that maybe when she would be out there one day with Carl, she would let her guard down and she'd get bitten or he'd get bitten. I think that's a very big factor there. And we'll have to see if that's really what she's feeling or what's going on there. But I think that's how Enid is feeling right now. It's a combination of worrying about losing Carl, growing close to somebody and losing him, as well as it maybe making her weak, because she really does seem to have the survivor mentality. Now, Carl, on the other hand, I feel like what's going on there is he's more afraid of upsetting her, or, maybe kind of like how guys are in general. I think he's also afraid of her rejecting him. Let's face it, guys, girls, it can be either one. We like somebody and we really hope that, there is a chance that maybe they like us, but it's a hesitation. You run the scenario in your head. You're like, oh God, does she like me? Doesn't she? What's going to happen? Is she going to accept me? Is she not? Is she going to reject me? I mean, we all have those thoughts, and sometimes we take a risk, sometimes we don't. And I think that part of it for Carl is, I think he's afraid of what Enid's going to do. I think that he's afraid that, Enid's going to reject him. I think on another hand, he's afraid that that Enid's going to just flat out stay with Ron. I mean, and I think that's a big factor for him too, is that, Enid is with Ron, it seems. And I don't think that Carl wants to get in the way of that relationship. I think he still understands that idea of, I don't want to take her away from him. That's wrong. And we may see that happening, where, in the comics, Ron and Carl actually, get into a little bit of a heated argument after Rick killed Pete. And I mean, that may still happen, but it would also be very interesting to see if their friendship would crumble because Carl would steal his girl. That's possible. So I have to wonder if part of it's also him worrying about upsetting Ron, but on the other hand, I have to wonder if he also is concerned about what Enid is feeling. Maybe he realizes that it's not the right time. It's not the right opportunity to, go after a relationship with her. Maybe she's not in the right state of mind. She's still upset. And I think that Carl realizes that maybe he doesn't want to step in and maybe make the situation worse for Enid. That, sometimes people have to get over things before they can start a relationship. If they're in love with an ex, if they're in love with somebody else, if they have, a problem that they can't, get over, sometimes people have to work through those things. And sometimes I wonder if Carl really thinks that with Enid, he can see that she's still not over what happened to her, and he worries about maybe making the wrong move and making her more upset or hate him. So I think there's a lot of different feelings going on between them. And I think as the season goes by, we may see that Enid opens up more, or maybe that there are other options. Now, in regards to their future, I think there's a couple of different possibilities here. One is that nothing ever happens. That nobody really rejects anybody, but before anything can ever really get started, I think there's a possibility that Enid might die. I would not be surprised if, maybe she got captured by the wolves, or if walkers bit her while she was, while they run over the Alexandria safe zone. That may happen. I could see that happening. Part of it because it would be something that would really devastate Carl. I think that Carl really does seem to care about Enid, and those feelings may grow. And him losing Enid may be something that would cause him to become a little bit more darkened toward the world. He would be a little more upset. He would, this good side of him may start to fade because he's lost something that he really cared about. And we saw how he was after Lori died. And I don't think it would be any different if Enid would die. If that was somebody that he really cared about, that may be something that could lead him down the wrong path. So that might be a possibility. Another possibility is that they do form some kind of a connection and things do start to go well. And maybe they might, break up. I also thought about the possibility that because of Carl's eye getting shot out, if that might end up causing an unfortunate, breakdown in their relationship. It's sad, but sometimes when things like that happen to people, they can't stick around. It's unfortunate if we get into an accident and we lose limbs and we might become paraplegic, we might have brain damage, things like that. Some people can stand by people's sides and some people can't, and it's unfortunate when they can't. I'm not going to judge and I'm not going to make any opinions, but there is just a simple fact of the matter. Some people would do anything for the one they love, but other people just can't handle that kind of responsibility or stress. And maybe, if Carl's eye does get shot out and he has that terrible scar, maybe that's something that Enid cannot handle. Enid can't look at that. She might think it's disgusting, or she might try, but maybe Carl starts to realize that, it's just not working. In the comics, Carl recognizes that when people look at him, even though they've known him and even though they, love him, they still can't really look at his eye. It still disgusts people. And maybe that's something that he's going to get upset about, and that might turn him and Enid away from each other. That's a possibility. So it could go either way on that if Carl's eye gets shot out. Now, on the other hand, it may turn into just a friendship like Sophia and Carl were. That's another possibility. And then when Lydia comes along in the comics, Lydia is one of the Whisperers that Carl ends up having relations with. When that happens, that might be the way to get to his true love. Or it may be that they do have a little bit of a relationship for a little while, Carl and Enid, but that when Lydia comes along, it's finally somebody who can look at him without, cringing, and maybe Carl appreciates that and accepts that and likes Lydia more. I mean, let's face it, that's another thing that happens, Sometimes you're in love with somebody and you're with them for a while. Somebody else enters into their life and they realize, hey, I have a stronger connection with them and I don't want to be with you anymore. And that can happen. So I think that it could be something that happens. Now, to give my overall prediction, I just don't see Carl and Enid going the long distance in regards to being together forever. If there is a connection between them, I think that it's either going to be extinguished early, that Enid would die, or I think that they'll be together for a little bit, but that if they do follow the storyline with Carl getting his eye shot out, that might not be something that Enid can handle, and that maybe when Lydia comes along, that is something that Carl would pursue. And a lot of it really just depends on how far they want to go in the story. And that's the truth. We don't really know how long Walking Dead's going to be on. It could be on for another, 5, 6, 7 seasons, and I would love that. Hey, let me tell you something. If Walking Dead wants to go the long distance, I'll be there the whole way. But there are a lot of factors that could get in the way of that. So we really don't know how far they're going to go, and that may make a difference as well. So I really don't know if they are 100% compatible. Or that they'll go the long distance, or that they could survive anything. But I think that we're just going to really need to wait and see, and see what the episodes show us, how they start to get to know each other, get to know what each other's feelings are, and maybe then we can at least kind of see what's going on there. So that's all I have for now. I want to thank all of you for watching. If you guys have any questions or comments, don't be afraid to leave them. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if there's any suggestions that you want to give for more video suggestions, don't be afraid to do so. I'm going to try to do a couple, but not too many before the trailer is released, because once the trailer is released on July 10th, that will be, a very big, opportunity to have more videos, better predictions, I feel. So I'm going to try to wait for more topics till later after the trailer. I want to thank Paramount for this idea. The user Paramount was someone that suggested this to me, and I really do appreciate it. And again, if you guys have any suggestions, I'm always open to suggestions, and I would like to, know what you guys want me to do. Do you want me to do videos on Walking Dead, Z Nation, Fear the Walking Dead, and what do you want me to do? Don't be afraid to suggest them. I do appreciate each and every suggestion, and I appreciate each and every one of you subscribers that I have. I really appreciate the people that have been watching my videos and following me. I really do appreciate it. You guys are the best. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and thank you very much for watching.